His Excellency, the Chancellor. His Excellency, the Chancellor!
I was thinking...
Never, Your Majesty, was there greater need for thought than now.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, what is it? More trouble?
What we might call the old trouble, Your Majesty.
Yes, as I was saying to Her Majesty only last night, uneasy lies the head that wears a crown, was how I put it.
A profound and original thought, which may well go down to posterity.
Which may go down well with posterity. I hope so. Remind me to tell you sometime of another little thing I said to Her Majesty. Something about a fierce light beating down on a throne. Well, posterity would like that too. Well, what is it?
It is in the matter of Her Royal Highness's wedding.
He hasn't heard anything.
It is a little difficult to put this tactfully, Your Majesty.
Well, do your best, and I shall tell you afterwards how you got on.
Let me put it this way. The Prince Simon will naturally assume that Her Royal Highness has the customary, so customary as to be, in my own poor opinion, slightly monotonous, has one what might call the inevitable, so inevitable as to be, in my opinion, again, almost mechanical, will assume that she has that, as I think of it, faultless, icily regular, splendidly, magnificently sculpted...
What you are trying to say, Chancellor, in the fewest possible words, is that my daughter is not beautiful.
Her beauty is certainly elusive, Your Majesty.
It is. It has eluded you. It has eluded me. It has eluded everyone who has seen her. It has even eluded the court painter. His last words were, "Oh, well, I did my very best." His successor is now painting the view across the water meadows from the west turrets. His doctor has advised him to keep to landscape.
It is unfortunate, Your Majesty, but there it is. One simply cannot understand how it can have occurred.
You don't think she takes after me at all? You don't detect a likeness?
No, certainly not, Your Majesty.
Good. Your predecessor did.
I've often wondered what happened to my predecessor.
Yes. Well, now you know.
Looking on the bright side, although Her Royal Highness is not, strictly speaking, beautiful...
Not truthfully speaking beautiful, Chancellor.
Yet she has great beauty of character.
My dear Chancellor, we are not here considering Her Royal Highness's character, but rather her chances of getting married. You do observe that there is that distinction?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Look at it from the suitor's point of view. If a girl is beautiful, it is easy to assume that she has tucked away inside her an equally beautiful character. But if a girl is unattractive, it is impossible to assume that she has, however elevated her character, tucked away inside her an equally beautiful face. That is not, so to speak, where you want it tucked away.
Quite so, Your Majesty.
That does not, however, alter the fact that Princess Camilla is quite the nicest person in the kingdom.
She is indeed, with the exception, I need hardly say, of Your Majesty and Her Majesty.
Your exceptions are tolerated for their loyalty and condemned for their extreme fatuity.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
As an adjective for your king, the word nice is ill-chosen. As an adjective for Her Majesty, the word nice is ill-chosen.
Ah, talking about Camilla.
As always, my dear, you are right.
This fellow Simon, what's he like?
No one has seen him, Your Majesty.
How old is he?
5 and 20, I understand.
In 25 years, he must have been seen by somebody.
Just a fleeting glimpse?
I meant, Your Majesty, that no detailed report of him has reached this country, save that he has the usual personal advantages associated with the prince and has been traveling in distant and dangerous lands.
Ah, nothing gone wrong with his eyes? A sunstroke or anything?
Not that I'm aware of, Your Majesty. At the same time, as I was saying to His Majesty, Her Royal Highness's character and disposition are so outstandingly superior.
Stuff and nonsense. You remember what happened when we had the Tournament of Love last year?
I was not myself present, Your Majesty. I had not then the honor of... I was abroad and never heard the full story.
No, it was the other fool. They all rode up to Camelot to pay their homage. It was the first time they had seen her. The heralds blew their trumpets and announced that she would marry whichever prince was left master of the field when all but one had been unhorsed. The trumpets were blown again. They all charged enthusiastically into the fight, and... Don't do that.
Sorry, my dear.
And what happened next? They all simultaneously fell off their horses and assumed a posture of defeat.
Yes, some of them were not so quick. I was very quick. I proclaimed him the victor.
At the Feast of Betrothal held that night,
We were all very quick.
the Chancellor announced that according to the laws of the kingdom, the successful suitor had to pass one further test. He had to give the correct answer to a riddle.
Such undoubtedly is the fact, Your Majesty.
There are times for announcing facts, Chancellor, and times for looking at things in a broad-minded sort of way. Try to remember that, please.
Yes, Your Majesty.
I invented the riddle myself. Quite an easy one. What is it which has 4 legs and barks like a dog? The answer is a dog.
You see that?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Well, it isn't difficult.
He, however, seemed to find it so. He said an eagle. Then he said a serpent. A very high mountain with slippery sides. 2 peacocks. A moonlight night. The day after tomorrow.
Well, nobody could certainly accuse him of not trying.
I did.
Well, I should have said that nobody could fail to recognize in his attitude a certain doggedness.
Finally, he said, death. I nudged the king.
Accepting the word nudge for the moment, I rubbed my ankle with one hand, clapped him on the shoulder with the other, congratulated him on his correct answer, and then he disappeared under the table, and personally, I never saw him again.
His body was found in the moat next morning.
What was he doing in the moat, Your Majesty?
Bobbing about. Try not to ask needless questions.
It all seems so strange.
What does?
That Her Royal Highness, alone of all the princesses one has ever heard of, should lack that invariable attribute of royalty, supreme beauty.
That was your great-aunt Malkin. She came to the christening. You know what she said.
It was cryptic. Great-aunt Malkin's besetting weakness. She came to my christening. She was 101 years old then, and that was 51 years ago. How old would that make her?
152, Your Majesty.
Yes, about that. Well, she promised me that when I grew up, I would have all of the happiness that my wife deserved. Well, it struck me at the time that, I say at the time, I was only a week old then, but it struck me, that is, I say, as soon as anything of that nature could strike me, work it out for yourself, Chancellor. But it does open up an interesting field of speculation. Of course, naturally, I have not wished to go into it at all deeply with Her Majesty.
I'd never heard anything less cryptic. She was wishing you extreme happiness.
I don't think she was wishing me anything at all. However...
But what was she wishing Her Royal Highness?
Her other godmother, on my side, had promised her the dazzling beauty for which all the women in my family are famous.
Indeed, yes, Your Majesty.
And Great-aunt Malkin said, what were the words?
I give you with this kiss a wedding day surprise, where ignorance is bliss, and 'tis folly to be wise. I did think the last 2 lines were rather neat, but what it meant...
Oh, we can all see what it meant. She was given beauty, and where is it? Great-aunt Malkin took it away from her. The wedding day surprise is that there will never be a wedding day.
Young men being what they are, my dear, the greater surprise would be if there were a wedding day. However, so...
Hello, darling. Oh, I say, affairs of state, sorry.
Oh, don't go, Camilla.
Shall I withdraw, Your Majesty?
You are aware, Camilla, that Prince Simon arrives today.
He has arrived. They're just letting down the drawbridge.
All right, well, then I must go.
Darling, you know what the drawbridge is like. It takes at least half an hour to let it down.
It wants oil. You haven't been begrudging it oil.
It wants a new drawbridge, darling.
Have I Your Majesty's permission to...
Yes, yes.
You've told him. It's the only chance.
Well, no. Well, I was going to, when I...
Then I'd better. You can explain to the girl. I'll have her sent to you. You've told Camilla.
Well, no. Well, I was going to when I...
Then you'd better tell her now.
My dear, are you sure?
It's the only chance left. My daughter.
Camilla, I wish to talk seriously with you about marriage.
Yes, Father.
It's time you learnt some of the facts of life.
Yes, Father.
Now, the great fact about marriage is that once you're married, you live happily ever after. All of our history books affirm this.
And your own experience too, darling.
Well, let us confine ourselves to history for the moment.
Yes, Father.
Of course, there may be an exception here or there, which, as it were, proves the rule, just as in... oh, well, never mind.
Go on, darling. You were going to say an exception here and there proves the rule that all princesses are beautiful.
Well, leave that be for the moment. The point is that it doesn't matter how you marry or who you marry as long as you get married, because you live happy ever after in any case. Do you follow me so far?
Yes, Father.
Yes. Well, now your mother and I have devised a little plan.
Was that it, going out of the door just now?
Yes, it does involve your waiting maid.
Darling, I have several.
Yes, but only one who leaps to the eye, so to speak. One who has, well, everything.
Dulcibella.
Yes, that's the one. And now, our little plan is that upon first meeting with the prince, she should pass herself off as the princess. A harmless ruse, which will find frequent record in the history books, thereby alluring Prince Simon to his, that is, bringing him to the point of, in other words, the wedding ceremony will take place immediately afterwards, and as quietly as possible. Well, naturally, since your great-aunt Malkin is 152, and since you will be wearing the family bridal veil, which no doubt is how the custom arose in the first place, the surprise after the ceremony will be his. Do you follow me at all? Your attention does seem to be wandering.
I was just wondering why you needed to tell me.
Well, just a precautionary measure. In case you should meet the prince or his attendant before the ceremony, you would, of course, pass yourself off as the maid.
A harmless ruse of which also you will find frequent record in the history books.
Exactly. But, of course, the situation need never arise.
The woman Dulcibella!
Now, Camilla, if you will just retire to your own apartments and wait for me there, I will call for you when it is time for the actual ceremony. Come in, my dear, and don't be frightened. There's nothing to be frightened about. Has Her Majesty told you what you are to do?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Good. Well, then let's see how well you can do it. All right. Now, you are, shall we say, seated here. Now, let's pretend that I am Prince Simon. And you are the beautiful Princess Camilla, whom he has never seen. This is a serious moment in your life, and you will find that a giggle will not be helpful. Now, I am announced. His Royal Highness Prince Simon. That's me being announced. Remember what I told you about the giggle. You ought to have a faraway look in the eye. Farther than that. Not that far. You are sitting here thinking beautiful thoughts in maiden meditation, fancy-free, but with the mouth definitely shut. There, that's better. Now, advance and fall upon one knee. You extend your hand graciously. Graciously, not trying to push him in the face. He takes your hand in his, raises it to his lips, and kisses it thus. Well, perhaps not so ardently as that. More like this. And then he will say to you, Your Royal Highness, this is the most... Your Royal Highness, I shall be ever so... Your Royal Highness, this is the proudest... Well, the point is that he will say it, and it will be complimentary. And then he will take your hand in both of his, press it to his heart, and you will say...
Coo!
No, not coo.
I've never had anyone do that to me before.
That strikes a wrong note also. What you want to say is... Oh, Prince Simon. You will say it.
Oh, Prince Simon!
No, you don't need to shout. Until he has said what 2 or 3 times, you may consider the possibility that he isn't deaf. Softly, giving the words a dying fall, letting them play about his head like a flight of doves.
Oh, Prince Simon!
Yes, well, keep in mind a flight of doves rather than a flight of panic-stricken elephants, and you will do all right. Now, I'm going to get up, and you must, as it were, waft me into a seat by your side. No, not rescuing a drowning man. That's another idea altogether. Useful at times, but at the moment inappropriate. Wafting. Now, Prince Simon will put into play all of the necessary muscles. All that is required of you is to indicate with a gracious movement of your hand the seat you require him to take. Now. There. That's better. Now, I think that you give me a look about halfway between the breathless adoration of a nun and the voluptuous abandonment of a woman of the world, with an undertone of regal dignity and just a touch of good comradeship. Now try that. Yes, well, I don't think that quite has it, Dulcibella. There's something missing. Say an absence of all of the qualities that I asked for. And in their place an odd resemblance of an unsatisfied fish. Let us go at this another way. Dulcibella, do you have a young man of your own?
Oh, yes. He's ever so smart. He's an archer. Well, not as you might say a real archer. He works in the armory. But old Bottlenose, you know who I mean, the captain of the guard, says the very next man that has to shoot my egg will take his place. Knowing father and how it is with Egg and me being maid to Her Royal Highness, and can't marry me till he's a real soldier. But ever so loving and funny, like the things he says. Well, I said to him once, Egg, I said.
Yes, well, I rather fancy, Dulcibella, that if you think of Egg all of the time, say as little as possible, and when thinking of Egg, never keep the mouth more than partially open, you shall do all right. Now, come and let me show you where you are to sit and wait for His Royal Highness. And remember, waft, not hoik.
Oh, was that my tunic? Oh, no,
was a tapestry. Ow! Off my foot! Wait. Well, I never liked green anyway. When was the last time they dusted in here? Oh.
Well,
Oh, hello.
ought you?
Oh, do sit down, won't you?
Who are you and how did you get here?
Well, that's rather a long story. Couldn't we sit down? You could sit here if you liked. But it isn't very comfortable.
That is the king's throne.
Oh, is that what it is?
Thrones are not meant to be comfortable.
Well, I don't know if they're meant to be, but they certainly aren't.
Why were you sitting in the king's throne, and who are you?
My name is... Carlo. My name is Carlo.
Mine is Dulcibella.
Good, and now couldn't we sit down?
You may sit here, if you like. Why are you so tired?
I've been taking very strenuous exercise.
Is that part of the long story?
It is.
I love stories.
Well, this isn't a story, really. You see, I'm attendant on Prince Simon, who is visiting here.
Oh, I'm attendant on Her Royal Highness.
Then you know what he's here for.
Yes.
She's very beautiful, I hear.
Did you hear that? Where have you been lately?
Traveling in distant lands.
Ah.
Oh, with Prince Simon.
All the same, I can't understand. Is Prince Simon in the palace now? The drawbridge can't be down yet.
I don't suppose it is. And what a noise it makes coming down.
Isn't it terrible?
I couldn't stand it anymore. I just had to get away. That's why I'm here.
But how?
Well, there's only one way, isn't there? That beech tree and a swing and a grab for the battlements, and don't ask me to remember it all.
You crossed the moat by that beech tree.
Yes, I got so tired of hanging about.
But it's terribly dangerous.
That's why I'm so exhausted. Nervous shock.
But of course, it's different for me.
Say that again. I must have got it wrong.
It's different for me because I'm used to it. Besides, I'm so much lighter.
You don't mean that you...
Oh, yes, often.
And I thought I was a brave man. Or at least I didn't until 5 minutes ago, and now I don't again.
Oh, but you are. And I think it's wonderful to do it straight off the first time.
Oh, well, you did.
Oh, no, not the first time. When I was a child.
You mean that you crashed?
Well, you only fall into the moat.
Only? Can you swim?
Of course.
So you swam to the castle walls and yelled for help, and they fished you out and walloped you, and next day you tried again? Well, if that isn't pluck.
Of course I didn't. I swam back and did it again at once. I mean, I tried it at once. It wasn't until the third time that I actually did it. You see, I was afraid I might lose my nerve.
Afraid she might lose her nerve.
There's a way of getting across from this side, too. A tree grows out from the wall and you jump into tree. I don't think it's quite so easy.
Not quite so easy. Good, you must show me.
Oh, I will.
Perhaps it might be as well if you taught me how to swim first. Now, I've often heard about swimming, but never...
You can't swim.
Well, no. Well, don't look so surprised. There are a lot of other things which I can't do. I'll tell you about them as soon as you have a couple of years to spare.
You can't swim, and yet you cross the moat by that beech tree? And you're ever so much heavier than I am. Now who's brave?
You keep talking about how light you are. I must see if there's anything in it. Stand up. You're right, Dulcibella. I could hold you here forever. You're very lovely. Do you know how lovely you are?
Yes.
Why do you laugh?
Aren't you tired of holding me?
Oh, frankly, yes. I exaggerated when I said I could hold you forever. when you've been hanging by the arms for 10 minutes over a very deep moat, wondering if it's too late to learn how to swim. What I meant is that I should like to hold you forever. Why did you laugh?
Oh, well, it was a little private joke of mine.
Well, if it comes to that, I've got a private joke, too. Let's exchange them.
Mine's very private. One other woman in the whole world knows, and that's all.
Well, mine's just as private. One other man knows, and that's all.
What fun. I love secrets. Well, here's mine. When I was born, one of my godmothers promised that I should be very beautiful.
How right she was.
But the other one said this: I give you with this kiss a wedding day surprise, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. And nobody knew what it meant. And I grew up very plain. And then one day, when I was about 10, I met my godmother in the forest. It was my 10th birthday. Nobody knows this except you.
Except us.
Except us. And she told me what her gift meant. It meant that I was beautiful, but everybody else was to go on being ignorant and thinking me plain until my wedding day. Because, she said, she didn't want me to grow up to be spoilt and willful and vain, as I should have done if everybody had always been telling me how beautiful I was. And besides, she said, the best thing in the world is to be quite sure of yourself, but not to expect admiration from other people. So ever since then, my mirror has told me I'm beautiful, and everybody else thinks me ugly, and I get a lot of fun out of it.
Well, seeing that Dulcibella is a result, I can only say that your godmother was very, very wise.
And now your secret.
Well, it isn't such a pretty one. You see, Prince Simon was going to woo Princess Camilla, and he'd heard that she was beautiful and haughty and imperious, and, well, all you would have been if your godmother hadn't been so wise. And being a very ordinary-looking fellow himself, he didn't think she would think much of him. So he suggested to one of his attendants, a man called Carlo of extremely attractive appearance, that he should pretend to be the prince and win the princess's hand. And then at the last moment they would change places.
How would they do that?
Well, the prince was going to have been married in full armor with his visor down.
Oh, what fun!
Neat, isn't it?
Oh, very, very, very.
Neat, but not so terribly funny. Why do you keep laughing?
Oh, well, that's another secret.
Well, if it comes to that, I've got another one up my sleeve. Shall we exchange again?
All right. You go first this time.
Very well. I am not Simon. Carlo! I am Simon. Ah!
Oh, what is it?
Oh, crap. Oh, I was saying that I was Prince Simon.
Shall I rub it for you?
I am Simon.
Is that better?
I am Simon.
I know.
Well, how did you know?
Well, you told me.
Well, but oughtn't you to swoon or something?
Why? History records many similar ruses.
Is that so? Well, I've never read history. I thought I was being profoundly original.
Oh, no. And now I'll tell you mine. For reasons very much like your own, the Princess Camilla, who is held to be extremely plain, feared to meet Prince Simon. Is the drawbridge down yet?
Oh, do your people give a faint surprise cheer every time it gets down?
Naturally.
Then it came down about 3 minutes ago.
Ah. Then at this very moment, your man Carlo is declaring his passionate love for my maid Dulcibella. That, I think, is funny. Dulcibella, by the way, is in love with a man she calls Egg, so I hope Carlo isn't getting carried away.
Carlo is married to a girl he calls the Little Woman, so Egg has nothing to fear.
By the way, I don't know if you heard, but I said, or as good as said, that I am the Princess Camilla.
I wasn't surprised. History, of which I've read a great deal, records many similar ruses.
Simon.
Camilla. May I hold you again? Sweetheart.
You see, when you lifted me up before, you said, "You're very lovely." And my godmother said that the first person to whom I would seem lovely was the man I should marry. So I knew then that you were Simon and that I should marry you.
Your Royal Highness, I knew directly I saw you that I should marry you, even if you were Dulcibella. By the way, which of you am I marrying?
When she lifts her veil, it will be Camilla. Until then, it will be Dulcibella.
Then goodbye, Camilla, until you lift your veil.
Goodbye, Simon, until you raise her visor.
Careful.
Who and what is this? More accurately, who and what are all these?
My attendant Carlo, Your Majesty. He will, with Your Majesty's permission, prepare me for the ceremony.
Of course, of course.
Your maid Dulcibella, is it not, my dear? She will prepare her Royal Highness.
Yes, most important.
I beg pardon, Your Majesty, if I've done wrong, but I found this gentleman wandering in...
Quite right, my dear. We've pulled it off.
Have I Your Majesty's authority to put the final test to His Royal Highness?
Is this safe?
Oh, perfectly, my dear. I gave him the answer just a moment ago. Don't forget, dog. You may proceed, Excellency. It is my desire that all of the affairs of state of my country shall proceed in a strictly constitutional manner.
By the constitution of the country, a suitor to Her Royal Highness's hand cannot be deemed successful until he has given the correct answer to a riddle. The last suitor answered incorrectly and thus failed to win his bride.
And by coincidence, fell into the moat.
Prince Simon, I have now to ask Your Royal Highness if you are prepared for the ordeal.
Absolutely.
I may mention as a matter possibly of some slight historical interest to our visitor that by the constitution of the country, the same riddle is not allowed to be asked on two successive occasions.
What's that?
This one, it is interesting to recall, was propounded exactly a century ago, and we must take it as a fortunate omen that it was well and truly solved.
I may want my sword directly.
The riddle is this. What is it that has 4 legs and meows like a cat?
A dog.
Bravo! Bravo!
According to the records of the occasion to which I referred, the answer would seem to be not dog.
Say something quick.
Your Majesty, have I permission to speak? Naturally, His Royal Highness could not think of justifying himself on such an occasion, but I think with Your Majesty's gracious permission, I could...
Certainly, certainly.
In our country, we have an animal to which we have given the name dog, or in the local dialect of the more mountainous districts, doggy. It sits by the fireside and purrs.
That's right. Purrs like anything.
When it needs milk, which is its staple food, it meows.
Meows like nobody's business.
It also has 4 legs.
One at each corner.
In some countries, I understand, this animal is called a cat. In one distant country to which His Royal Highness and I penetrated, it was called by the very curious name of hippopotamus.
That's right. Do you remember that ginger-colored hippopotamus which used to climb on my shoulder and lick my ear?
I shall never forget it, sir. So you see, Your Majesty.
Yes, thank you. I think that makes it perfectly clear. You are about to agree.
Undoubtedly, Your Majesty. May I be the first to congratulate His Royal Highness on solving the riddle so accurately.
You may be the first to go and see that all is in readiness for an immediate wedding.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Prince Simon, you no doubt will also wish to go and prepare yourself for the wedding ceremony.
Thank you, sir.
Have I Your Majesty's permission to attend His Royal Highness? It is the custom of our country for princes of the royal blood to be married in full armor, a matter which requires a certain adjustment.
Certainly, certainly. Young man, you have a certain quality of quickness about you which I greatly admire. it is my pleasure to reward it in any way which commends itself to you.
Your Majesty is ever gracious. May I ask for my reward after the ceremony?
Why, certainly. Now, young woman, go and make yourself scarce. You have done your work excellently. And you and your... what is his name again?
Egg, Your Majesty.
Yes, you and your egg will not be forgotten.
Cute.
Well, my dear, we may congratulate ourselves. As I said to someone once, we have not lost a daughter, we have gained a son. How does he strike you?
Stupid.
I thought they made a rather handsome pair, he and Dulcibella.
Both stupid.
I said nothing about stupidity. What I said was they were both very handsome. That is the important thing, or isn't it?
What do you think of Prince Simon, Camilla?
I adore him. We shall be so happy together.
Well, of course you will. I told you so. Happy ever after.
Run along now and get ready.
Yes, Mother.
My dear, could we have been wrong about Camilla all this time? Did she somehow seem just a little less plain to you just now? Did you notice anything?
Just the excitement of the marriage.
Yes, that would account for it. Some time of another little thing I said to Her Majesty. Something about a fierce light beating down on a throne. Well, never mind. What is it?
Is this safe?
Oh, perfectly, my dear. I gave him the answer just a moment ago.
The last suitor answered incorrectly and thus failed to win his bride.
And by coincidence, he fell. I'm sorry.
Camilla. May I try holding you again? Trying to crunch with a Cheeto chip. What are you doing crunching over there? My God. Most passion forward I hear Chip go. Look at Dwayne. She crunched, Dwayne. Now she's gonna burp.